Tommy's frozen.
Sorry. Yeah. Is the mic on? Okay. It won't let me. Yeah, I just need to share from that one and I'm struggling here. It's not letting that computer share. Sorry, guys. Okay, I got it.
Sorry about the technical difficulties there, everyone. Thank you, Wendy, for your patience. Are we gonna start over from the beginning? Okay, perfect. No, okay. So we're going to begin from the beginning again. Tonight we are here to discuss our fiscal year 2021 expenditure budget, revision number 1. I'm Wendy Qualls, the Executive Director of Finance. Tonight's presentation aligns with our strategic plan. It falls under Finance and Resources, and it's to increase stakeholder knowledge and understanding of school funding. The timeline for the completion is this needs to be completed by December 15th. The district was notified that we exceeded our budget limit by more than 1%. Therefore, we are required to revise our budget. So the maintenance and operation budget is based on current year enrollment. And in the spring, Governor Ducey realized that statewide there was a decline in enrollment. And so he had set aside CARES funding to assist districts in the decline that they're going to see when they're adopting their revised budgets this year. So for us, our average daily membership is 9,882 at the 40th day. That's a decline of 780 students. Once the student enrollment is entered into the formula that generates a weighted student count, that student count has decreased by 956 students. We're funded at a base support level of $4,359.55. That support level remained the same in the budget calculation. And also in the calculation, we use daily route miles from 2019. So based on the formula, our revised number 1 budget is for $60,942,000 for our revenue control limit, which is a decline of $4.1 million, which is attributable to the decline in enrollment. The maintenance and operation override is just under $10 million. That amount is based on prior year enrollment, so it does not change. The budget carry forward is increased to $7.2 million, which is an increase of about 1.6. And that is from not expending all of the budget from the prior year. The amount we're carrying forward is a little bit higher. We are transferring $140,000 to the Energy Water Fund for our lease payment on our energy management system, and then also transferring $50,000 to Capital Fund for K-3 reading program. So in total, our maintenance and operation general budget limit is $77.9 million, a net decline of $2.5 million. So when we look at how those revenues are going to be spent, the regular education budget has been revised down by $2.5 million, and also K-3 funding, because the funding for K-3 also is reduced due to our declining enrollment. The current guidance is for districts to pay general education teachers salary and benefits from the CARES funding that the governor had set aside for us. We are reevaluating that. We have another webinar this week. I don't believe most of it will be teacher salary because that does complicate some of the state compliance requirements. So we will be looking at what expenditures we will be shifting over to those CARES funds. The maintenance and operations, after these reductions, salary and benefits comprise 84.9%, which is a decrease of 0.5%. Utilities increased by 0.1 to 4.1% of the budget, and then other is 11%. One of the calculations I like to do is to look at, if you look at only the maintenance and operations fund, what will our classroom spending percentage be? And this is expenditures that are directly into the classroom, and it's 58.5%, which is a decline of 1.8. Again, I don't believe we're going to actually end up moving teacher salaries, so I think our percentage will still be higher. The other change in the budget that we're looking at is for unrestricted capital. It is based on prior year funding or prior year student count, And our student count for last year did change by 0.487 after the state did some recalculations statewide. And the funding per student is $450.76. So again, if we look at the calculation, the district additional assistance is 4.9 million, just a slight increase of $220. The budget carryover is 11.8 million, an increase of 660,000. Again, we had anticipated some expenditures if jobs weren't completed by the end of the year. So we were able to carry forward additional money into the current school year. Proposition 123, that amount has not changed. The estimate is that we'll receive just under 700,000 for Prop 123. You see the transfer coming in from M&O for our K-3 reading program of 50,000. This is supposed to be the last year that our capital funds are reduced. And this reduction goes way back to the recession in 2009. I think arguably this should be our last year seeing a reduction. It's just under 800,000. So I anticipate our capital budget limit will be 16.7 million. And if we look at how those revenues will be spent, facilities and improvements, about 6.7 million, an increase of that 660,000 will be used for facilities and improvements. Furniture, equipment, and vehicles, 8.9 million, and for textbooks, library books, instructional materials, 1.9. So again, that reflects our increase of the 660,000. The only other change in the budgets that we're looking at adopting tonight is for federal grants, increasing about 7.3 million. So that is the expected CARES money and also some grant funding for high-cost students. So those are the changes that are in the budget forms tonight. Do you have any questions?
I have a couple of questions. My first question is, if we, in the unrestricted capital outlay, if we had more budget carryover than we had originally anticipated, why are we still transferring that $50,000 over for the K-3 reading?
So K-3 reading is an amount that's set aside just for K-3. And when I have discussions with curriculum, we plan to spend about 50,000 of that money on the K-3 supplements. So therefore, we just match that funding to where it's actually going to be spent.
Okay. So then my other question is, our M&O budget is being decreased by 2.5 million due to our enrollment, but we're getting 7.3 million more in funding from CARES funding. So does that mean we're actually going to have an excess in funds, or kind of how do those two things translate into kind of the bottom line number?
So our original estimate was that we would receive about 7.5 million for CARES funds, and we did spend some of that last school year. The governor had set aside $370 million to be used for this project. The need is actually higher than that, so we've at this point only been awarded $5 million. So the plan is to use the majority of that $5 million to help with that 2.5 reduction. Also, if you remember back at the beginning of the year in the spring when we approved salary increases, we plan to use $2.5 to $3 million of future funding. So that kind of helps offset that for the current year.
Okay, so even though our enrollment is down, we're being made whole through additional funding. So there's no excess, but there also seems to be no harm. We don't anticipate dipping into our rainy day funds or anything any more than we originally had when we set the budget.
So at this point, we are not looking at dipping in any further, but we still are looking to see if we're going to receive that additional 2.5 million, which some of that would be used for capital, because we have made capital purchases for technology, a lot of equipment, and so far we have not seen the revenues to come in to help cover those costs. So if that $2.5 million does come in, it's going to help cover technology. We could also possibly use some of it for community ed. Our community ed program hasn't been able to collect any revenues, and they are supporting us on our on-site learning. So I'm really hopeful that somehow we find out about some type of grant or something to make up that $2.5 million.
And what is if we've only received $5 million, why are we listing it as 7.3 here in the change? If we're unsure if the government's actually going to provide the rest of that.
So in the budget forms, we have the federal funds are cash-based or budget-based, and we have to have that amount in our budget before we can accept and start spending other awards. So at the time, I anticipated we were getting $7.5 million. After I revised the budget, we were notified we're only getting $500 million. So it's just to make sure we have enough available within that budget code on our budget forms, but then we actually have to wait until we're awarded the funds to be able to spend it.
Okay, and any timeline on when that process might shake out?
No.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Riveting information, Wendy. You rendered us all speechless with that budget. Thank you very much for your hard work in putting this together. We appreciate it. Okay, I will entertain a motion for adjournment of our public hearing.
I motion to adjourn the public hearing.
I second. Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We are adjourned. Next, I call our open meeting to order. Before we get started this evening, I'd like for us to have a moment of silence for one of our special education students that we lost over the weekend. So if you'll just bow your heads for just a moment before we begin. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, before we get started in our meeting, we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, if you're following along on our agenda, we are on item 3A, our recognitions and celebrations from Mrs. Shelley Hornback. Good evening, Shelley. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to mind our safety protocols and do a little cleaning here. Thank you very much. President Clymer, members of the governing board, Superintendent Gunning, thank you so much for this opportunity. Tonight we celebrate something very special, our elected officials. As you well know, now is a particularly difficult time to be in public education. We need allies and champions to pave the way for our success. Here in our A-rated district, we are fortunate to have a long and diverse list of community partners who understand that schools cannot do it alone. The chain, or the pyramid, if you will, of elected officials begins with all of you, our school board members. And of course, the next layer there would be our mayors and our city council members in Avondale, Goodyear, Buckeye, and Litchfield Park. These are local residents, local citizens in nonpartisan roles who dedicate themselves to bettering our schools and communities. Tonight, we celebrate some of our elected officials and their important contributions to our educational excellence. First, we celebrate the lifelong service and recent retirement of Buckeye Mayor Jackie A. Meck. Mayor Meck is a lifelong resident of Buckeye, and he was the youngest ever mayor of Buckeye in the 70s. He was re-elected in 2008 and served 12 consecutive years as Buckeye evolved from a small farm town to America's fastest growing city. Buckeye is quickly approaching 100,000 residents and has 9 school districts. Mayor Meck has been an ambassador for our work in Litchfield at every turn. He values teachers and children and partnership. He is a frequent guest in our Grotto schools and a beloved thought leader when it comes to funding public education. He's quick to praise our success, he addresses our needs, and he inspires our staff. Mayor Meck says that the highlight of his career was the creation of Skyline Regional Park, and he intends to continue to work as the co-founder of the White Tank Mountains Conservancy. He's also publicly pledged to continue supporting our schools in any way that he can in his retirement. Mayor Meck's successor is Mayor Eric Orsborn, another friend of Litchfield Elementary School District. His children attend in our schools, and he understands that strong schools and strong communities are inextricably linked. Please join me in thanking Mayor Meck for his lifetime of service and leadership, and for his steadfast support of Litchfield Elementary School District. Tonight, we also celebrate 2 of you, our governing board members here on our school board. Tonight, we join the Arizona School Board Association in recognizing President Clymer and Director Zeidema for their commitment to professional development as a crucial component of their outstanding service to students, schools, and community. Director Zeidema has recently earned a certificate of boardmanship and an associate of boardmanship from ASBA. This represents her completion of 96 continuing education units. President Clymer has recently earned ASBA's Copper Star Award. This represents her total of 150 continuing education units. Congratulations to you both on this impressive achievement, and many thanks to all of you for your leadership and support. Superintendent Gunning is quick to tell us that she's privileged to work for the best school board on the planet. And of course, we all agree. So your heart and your passion and your commitment is so obvious, and it's very truly appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. If you'll join me, we'll transition on our agenda to item 3B to recognize the retirement of governing board member Dr. Tanya Fitzer. Our beloved Dr. Fitzer was elected to our governing board in November 2014. I was actually there with her in a local restaurant on that election night, and I clearly and gratefully remember your enthusiasm and your eagerness to serve the students and staff of Litchfield Elementary School District. With 6 impressive years of dedicated service under her belt, Dr. Fitzer is our most seasoned board member. She brings experience, wisdom, and candor to our noble work and a deep-rooted belief in our excellence. Immediately upon arrival, Dr. Fitzer was determined to be supportive and to build a strong sense of teamwork. She has been instrumental to our success since her very first day on the job. She has had a profound influence on major initiatives. This includes boundary revisions, the dreaded boundary revisions. Also, the naming and opening of a new school, the hiring of a new superintendent, our important bond and override work, Litchfield's engagement in the Red for Ed movement, our stellar reputation for fiscal responsibility, and our roadmap in a global pandemic. I asked several staff members to help me describe Dr. Fitzer, and they told me that she is caring, calm, positive, authentic. I heard eloquent several times, intelligent, generous, and humble. Of course, we know that community service at this level does not happen in a silo. It takes significant support from her staff and her family for Dr. Fitzer to serve with such engagement and impact. To Scott and Sydney and Simone, we also thank you for your support and your sacrifice. Dr. Fitzer, it's my deep honor to represent our students and our staff in giving thanks for your remarkable service. We're very, very grateful. And it's also my privilege to invite Superintendent Gunning to make some remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shelley, for those beautiful words to describe Dr. Fitzer. I have this beautiful plaque that will be presenting to her for all of her service and dedication. I just have to say thank you. I feel like I started as like this high, and now I'm a big girl, but that you traveled with me from my beginning as superintendent. I always appreciated your support, your calmness, your ability to look from every perspective, and to always bring things back to center. So I appreciate you, I thank you, and you will definitely be missed. Before we move on, I'd like to say something too, and we're not going to make this like a big cry fest or whatever, so I promise I will do my best, but I could not recognize you, as Jody said. I think, between Shelley and Jody, they talked about your accomplishments and your years of service and all of those things. For me, I just want to say thank you. You are the only one left from my very first year of board service, and I was, as Shelley described you, I was anxious and eager, and I was, ready to take on the world. And very quickly, I realized that this was the hardest job I would ever do. Hardest volunteer job, I will say, that we will ever do. And as mentioned before, you are calm and you are pragmatic and you are very quick to remind us that we can do hard things, and that if we just put our mind to it, we will get through it. And I think you've shown that time and time again. I think one of the sort of shining stars for me in our relationship was the hiring of Jody, actually. That was what, the first year or two of me being on the board, coming on brand new, and Dr. Lean's legacy and having to hire somebody new. And I just remember thinking, how are we ever going to do this, right? Like, this is really hard. And being somebody new, I didn't know how that was going to work. And so I appreciate you shepherding us through that process and really helping, because I think, we chose the right leader for the job, but at the time, we were really unsure. We didn't know what we were doing. And, when we were sitting in that room, we were really making some really tough decisions, and we knew that we were. So thank you for your service to this district. We are going to miss you, but we hope that you'll come back for all the fun stuff, not the board meetings, not the YouTube, channel or whatever, but the fun things. And you still live in our community, and I know that you're very close with lots of members of our staff and us, and I hope that you always feel welcome here. Sure. No pressure. You don't have to respond. You don't have to. Okay, so moving forward, we are on item 3C. We'll have our COVID-19 update presentation from Superintendent Gunning. Thank you, Madam President, members of the Governing Board. Just wanted to give you an update on COVID to just kind of bring you up to where we are currently. Again, I'm Superintendent Gunning, and I control the slides. Do I control the slides? Okay. There we go. I know that might be a little bit difficult to see, but we wanted to update you on our current COVID numbers. As of last week, we had over 300 cases per 100,000. We were over 11% positive, and as a state, we were up to 7.7% of COVID-like illness. So we're continuing to go in the wrong direction. I know even today, the Maricopa County numbers came out, and we had approximately 9,000 cases in the county just today alone. So definitely has been difficult to see the numbers continuing to increase. The next is our dashboard, our current dashboard. Even though that we are in distance learning, we do have some free on-site safe place taking place along with our neediest of children being on campus. So we're still seeing the effects of the COVID illness with the number of cases that we're seeing and the number of quarantines. The quarantines are impacting larger groups that we're noticing, and so it's continuing to impact the day-to-day business of the organization. Here are our numbers for our on-site learning. We have about 450 students in the K-8, 102 preschool participants, 275 in receiving special ed services, and 106 receiving developmental preschool services. Our food services, we are still offering our free meals for children ages 18 and under, and they're available at 6 schools and 13 bus stops. And these are available daily, and we'll continue them up until the holiday break. And for our winter break, we will offer families a way of ordering their meals, and they can order the amount of meals needed per child, and they'll pick them up on December 18th. And then the next opportunity for their weekly meals will be January 4th for a January 8th pickup. Our technology update, LESD, our internet was something that we've been definitely working on and working on the upgrades. We were very excited that we were able to upgrade our internet bandwidth to 5.5 gigabytes over the Thanksgiving break, so that's been really helpful. We're still waiting on the equipment delivery to upgrade to 10. So we'll be very excited once we're able to do that. We have 375 Chromebooks delivered to the warehouse on December 1st. That was from that original order back in March, so we're now getting some of those in. We have 7 hotspots available for students in need of internet access, and we have 2,900 devices loaned out for students. We have 316 devices gifted to students from community partners, and we have 95 devices pledged from community partners that will be coming in. For transportation, we have 21 buses running for our special education routes. It's 21 student transporters and 21 monitors. We have a van running also. We have a bus running our general ed route for on-site learning. So what that was for is we had some students that were not connected. So we reached out, found them, established a bus location for them to go to so that we can take them to the on-site learning. We also then have the 3 buses running for meal deliveries, and we are still looking for 13 student transporters. Our communication continues, it's ongoing. We'll have frequent updates coming from my office. Another one will go out this week with a follow-up next week. Updated FAQs, updated website. We meet weekly as an admin council just regarding COVID. That's every Friday, just to touch base on the numbers, where are we at, if there's any new situations, any new information, CDC updates things on a regular basis. We just had a recent update that has come through this week to change in the quarantining piece. So that's something that we continue to see those changes happen. We also have our teachers doing weekly blasts, school messages, newsletters, and at the school site, they're doing frequent staff meetings to keep everyone abreast. And that's the end. Are there any questions that you may have for me regarding COVID?
Questions? No?
I said one, the
Yeah, I know.
that were just delivered. We don't, before we even got those, we had pretty much everything covered, right? So those are just graded, right?
Right. I have a question. So some of the feedback that we've been getting from parents is the question, why are neighboring districts, or how are neighboring districts remaining open, meaning students aren't in 5-day in-person learning, versus our decision to not, to go to full distance learning? I haven't looked into those districts myself to know the answer to that, but do you have any insights for us as to, is there some sort of magic formula that we just don't know about, or they're seeing the same numbers, but somehow they can make it work logistically between subs and teachers and quarantining? And
I don't know the details of how they're maintaining operationally. I mean, they could be mixing cohorts, pulling kids together whenever they have someone out, those types of things. We wanted to stay true to our safety protocol to ensure the safety of our staff and students. And it kind of defeats that purpose if you're having to mix everybody together at a last minute setting. The other thing that I think each district has their own setting. There are some of our neighboring districts that have been closed the entire time because their numbers and their community rates were so high. It was very difficult for them to even consider opening. And I think the complexity of, just like kind of what you were talking about, the complexity of COVID and the spread and operationally being able to manage and to continue the safety, that's what became so difficult for us. We're seeing the spread still happen even in the very small numbers that we're having. We're also seeing the spread in younger students, younger and younger. So even though we had heard that it was very unlikely or not as, plausible, we're seeing it now in our youngest and our littlest of people. So that's concerning as well. Still grateful that the symptoms that we're seeing out there in staff and students tend to be more minimum, but definitely watching it spread a lot faster. And we're seeing it across kind of all different departments as well. So fortunately, we've been able to kind of manage and maintain the safety of our on-site learning and our programs with the staff that we have.
So I guess I'll be the one to ask the elephant in the room. We're supposed to give an update to parents in a week and a half about whether we're going to be opening or not. And I think that we would have very angry everyone if we didn't at least discuss where we're headed with that right now. As far as, because like you said, there was like 9,000 cases in Maricopa County today, and those numbers won't be seen in benchmarks until 2 weeks from now. So where are we at in the discussions with that? What is that looking like at the moment?
I mean, it's not looking very positive as of right now, as we're seeing the numbers continuing to rise. I would anticipate this Thursday we'll have all three in the red. I would anticipate that every single metrics would be there. I think Dr. Pritzker stated that this was kind of a long haul endeavor that we were kind of stepping into. I will say that the bright light in that is that the vaccine is supposed to be approved here very shortly. They already have it ready to ship out. We'll go to first responders first, educators will be next. So I'm glad that we're higher up on the level of receiving that. I just don't think it looks really good to return right after the holiday break. And then they're talking about that they feel the numbers from the holiday break will be even greater than the Thanksgiving break. So not looking as positive as I was hoping for January.
What's the timeline in terms of, I mean, I know it's difficult, we have winter break in the middle, and so there are, 2 weeks approximately in between when we'll leave and then when we're scheduled to come back. So do you anticipate being able to make that call prior to us leaving on Christmas break, saying we're going to do that, and then we'll just approach that in January when we get back? Yeah. And make a determination once we get, okay.
Yeah, we want to give families as much notice as possible. And I know it's frustrating. I know it's hard. It's kind of hard on everyone all the way around. And the beautiful thing of increasing the internet speed is that if there is someone in need, that we can help support them in receiving the laptop send is definitely helpful. I have to thank and commend all the families who've been so respectful and kind, especially when we needed to quarantine or isolate they've been, just very receptive and understanding.
I think I'd like to just jump on here for 1 second. Kim, I know that email that you're referring to with the other districts that had come in, stating that other districts had been able to stay open, and kind of what is it that they were doing different than what we're doing. I do feel that we're moving in the right direction, like you said, with the vaccine. It's very good to know that educators are second in line for that, so that definitely makes my heart feel good that we're heading, forward. If that weren't the case, it would be nice to see an idea, something outside of the box for a lot of parents who are clearly upset. And for those who say that we are failing doing our job, I don't think that we're failing. I think that we're all trying to do the best that we can. Other districts may have smaller amounts of people, they may have larger buildings. There's always a different scenario in every district that I think is going to, cause complaint or show better numbers. Based on the numbers that I saw that just came out, it also looks like it's circulating. So we may have one campus that has a high number, others are very low, and then that seems to change, and it's the other ones that were low are now high. Just like you said, that it's going to keep kind of rolling back through. I kind of lost my train of thought and what else I was saying. I know that's not unusual. I think that we're really trying to do the best that we can, and a little bit of grace still is we want our kids in school. I think everyone just needs to know that that is what we all want, right? Yeah. And no matter how many times I have to say it, I guess I feel like I need to say it again.
I think the one thing, transitioning through this whole entire time frame, the one thing that we've been able to start the conversation is thinking long-term, or a little bit longer, and what could our plan or options be? Thinking a little bit outside the box to be able to support the families and our staff members simultaneously.
Knowing that, things have not gone as planned, right, this year, to say the least. I am hopeful that, the vaccine is going to be shipped on time, and that educators are going to be first in line, and that, I'm hopeful for all of these things. But we're still probably a few months away from that, realistically, right, of all of our staff actually being able to get through that process. I don't think we can last in this format for months, right? I think our families are struggling, our kids are struggling, we're all struggling with that idea. So how do we start to formulate that operational plan? I feel like we have the protocols and the risk and all of that addressed really well. I hope the staff and everybody feels that way. We've heard from families that they do feel that way. All of the protocols are putting in place. So I feel like we've got that really locked in. How do we start to address that operational issue? Because, and I think that's one point I think that was made earlier, that this is not strictly about the numbers and the metrics and things like that. While they are out of control and they are something that, don't look good, and being in the red consistently over and over and just growing is not, does not make our job easier. But one of the main reasons that our kids are not in school right now is because we cannot operationally keep our schools open with the protocols and quarantining and stuff that is required, both by the CDC and our state and local health officials. So while people may agree or disagree with the metrics, and that's not a conversation we need to have tonight, one of the things we do need to address is how are we going to overcome these operational hurdles that, this is just going to be around for a little while longer. So how do we do that? I don't know that we have the answer, but we've got to figure something out quicker than relying on the vaccine, I guess is what I'm saying. Because I don't feel like that's going to be, and it's a 30-day vaccine, right? You take one and then you take a second dose. So we're months away from that actually being effective. And I don't think we have months with our community of continuing to be out of school.
So one of the things that we'll be bringing to you in January is hiring our own small sub-pool from our student teachers. We have 4 that we feel that would be great and that they're willing to do so. So that will help, and that we can manage it from our office, especially to help with any kind of quarantining or any of those things. We're also putting in different procedures to help support that if we had to quarantine or make some decisions to help relieve some of the operational burden, that maybe it's just at a class level, if that makes sense. So if we can't appropriately staff it at that class level, that class goes online for that period of time, to help with that too. So that we're trying to work through all of those different nuances so that when we open, my hope is that if we open, that we have everything in place so that the only thing that we would then close down is if we had to close down a class at the grade level or school itself, and that others could still
A
go.
situational
I do
quarantine.
think, right, I do think you'll see, kind of like what you guys were talking about, that it's flowing from school to school, and I think it's gonna just keep circling back around, so that very well could be. But, I think to be able to at least have that, some form of consistency in place would be definitely helpful.
I just wanted to clarify a little bit to anybody that might be watching. A large reason that we are unable to open earlier was we don't have the staff with our policies, and our policies are what allow us to be safe, what allow us to be open, but they're also what takes teachers, other staff members out of the classroom. So when we're trying to distance, we can't put classrooms together like we might have in the past, and they're not going to be gone for a day or two. They're going to be gone for whatever the quarantine time is. So one of the issues is subs. So parents out there, if you want your kids back in school and you're available, sign up to be a sub. It's one of the best ways to get our kids back in the classroom, because we literally do not have the bodies to keep our kids in a classroom with any kind of instruction. So there's a lot of hurdles, and I think messaging wise, for me, you know, I'm a kind of ride or die. Like I'm all in, like I want to be back, like nobody's business. But we realistically have to have the teachers to have all the safety protocols and all the things in place. Frankly, even without those protocols, we don't have enough bodies. So again, if you ever were a sub, ever want to be a sub, now's the time. And that's one of the things I've been trying to make very clear, because for me, I mean, let me tell you, my frustration level is extremely high. I am those people writing those angry letters. I am. But again, I sit on this side of the desk and know the realities of it. And I know, Jody, you've been working, you know, like you said, trying to hire some of our own pool and other things like that. But, you know, like I said, that obviously is one of the big things. The other thing too is, Jody, if you wouldn't mind, and I won't be here probably for the answers, but I think it would be helpful for those people that are open, that are near us, if there is a way to reach out, at least so we have some answers. Because again, as a parent, as a community member, I look around and I'm like, okay, my restaurant's open, that bar's still open, you know, gym's still open, some schools around us are open. To me, the most important thing on the planet is education, which is why I did this for 6 years. And it seems to be the last priority, which clearly it is not here, but that is the feeling. And so anything that we can have answer-wise, and as far as, you know, communicating that it's not just about the numbers. One more thing to piggyback back on that is, oh, I lost it. Completely lost my train of thought. Anyway,
Because she's sitting next to me.
I know. It's contagious. I'll think of it later. But anyway, if we could at least have, I mean, maybe they're just completely blowing the numbers off, which, you know, maybe that's what they're doing. Okay, it's good to know that. And I think a little bit circling back to Danielle's point is, I think that waiting for the metrics to go the way we would have loved them to have been, and the greens, the yellows, those things, may not be realistic. So if we are going to plan on going back to school this year, we may have to look at those metrics in a different way. And maybe the way we can get some insight from other districts that have managed to stay open and not get sued a million times. Maybe they're getting sued, I don't know. But I think that, you know, to stick with the same plan, and again, I'm not saying that's necessarily what we're doing, but I think realistically we have to say, how are we looking at those metrics? Because the reality is, this is even with the vaccine, it's a very slow train. So it's not going to turn the other direction really. So, you know, my 3 cents.
If we had the subs, we could forego those metrics, or at least, like you said, look at them from a different light.
Right, because, but right now, we don't have the bodies of kids in classrooms regardless of what they do.
Exactly. So Danielle, when you ask, like, what could we possibly do? What would it possibly look like? It would look like a school where people didn't care, right? Not care, where they weren't concerned whether they had COVID or not. The teachers get it, we have the subs to come in, but we know that it's passing through. The parents realize, oh, little Jenny's class, someone came down with COVID, now they're going to be in another tight room, and they're not going to have to care about social distancing. I don't know how many of our residents are at that level, but I think that that's where they would eventually get to, where they would say, treat it like the flu, and that's somewhere that they would see how we can get everybody back. Which is a radical idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's not my approach, right? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, no, mine either. I'm just saying, that's the radical idea. Like, if everybody wants to be in school, that's what it would look like.
Right. I mean, I guess I feel like for our district, there's a compromise there, right? I mean, we have the safety protocols in place. We know what we're going to stick with. We're not going to compromise those because we believe in them, and we've spent a lot of time and money and education for our staff and our students, and we're going to continue with that. On the other end of that, Elaine, is what you're saying is kind of just free for all, do whatever, right? I think we can have operational success and safety success at the same time. I don't have those answers, but I know that, we've had conversations like this before. And I think we just have to figure out how to live within our own means. And I just say that because I know the further I see this go, the harder it is for us to say, we're just going to follow one thing, because it's never just one thing, right? The metrics are never going to work exactly, and operationally is never going to be exactly how we want it to be, and all of these things. So I think if we can stay true to our protocols and our safety mitigation measures, and also find a way to create operational success where we can open the doors and keep them open, because the back and forth is also killing everybody too, right? The teachers make some momentum, they make some progress with kids, and then, oh, we're back home. I'm not saying anything that anyone out there doesn't already know. So anyway, I think you get our point, and we look forward to January with more, potential ways that we can, get back into the classroom.
I have another quick question and a comment. But the question first is, I've had a couple parents ask, because the letters that have gone out talked about how there'd be an update on the 18th, letting them know if we were going to go back 5-day or if we'd stay distance learning. So does that mean that you were looking to, when we go back, not have hybrid anymore as well?
No, it would be the 5-day hybrid and online. The 5-day teachers really just want to go back 5-day. They don't want to transition with a hybrid. So that's what I meant.
Okay, and then as far as, I agree, people are angry because they see bars open, they see stores open, they see all these things open. We as a board can't close the bars. But if you want to stay home from the bar, I think you should all do that so that our kids can go back to school.
And what I'll add on top of that is the people who you should be directing your anger toward are our state and potentially city leaders. We have gotten a lot of feedback saying the schools in Europe are open. That is true, but that is because Europe did not open their bars, they did not open their gyms, they did not open their restaurants. Our state has chosen to leave those things open and put education on the bottom of the list, as they consistently do, whether it's funding or, in this case, actual operational aspects to be able to allow us to educate our kids in the best way possible. So while I'm always happy to hear your feedback, please direct it to those leaders who are in charge of the rest of the system, not only the schools. Thank you.
Well said, Kim, and everyone else. Thank you for your feedback. Jody, thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Appreciate it. Moving on to item 4A, if you're following along on the agenda, acknowledgement of public requests to speak. Let me just give a quick explanation of this, Shelley, while you're getting prepared. While we are still in the virtual format, if you would like to submit a statement that is, I believe it's 2 minutes or less, you can do that via email to the board, and our own Shelley Horvath will read those to us. So please, even though this isn't an open meeting for the public, it still is open for requests to speak, and that's what you'll be reading tonight.
Thank you, President Clymer, members of the board, and Superintendent Gunning. We have one remark today from the public. This is from a student, and here is his message. Hello, my name is Peyton Brown. I am a student at Glen Soto in 8th grade. I am composing this email to inform you that for many families, this online thing is not working. I'm aware that the teachers and staff are scared, but as a student, I'm struggling as a student to keep up my grades. Before I came to this school, I was in an accelerated school, and there I was getting A's and B's, but this year, in distance learning, I'm getting C's, D's, and F's. I have gotten them up to 2 A's, which was a pass or fail grade, a B, and 4 C's. I'm sure I didn't join this school and go to school to stay home. I went to K-12 online at the beginning of this year and disliked the fact there was no talking to other students to do assignments. In that, I was failing because there was no interaction with teachers or students. So I came to this school to be able to interact with people other than a computer and my family. Sadly, that is what it has come to. I am doing as good as I am doing at the other school. Please consider opening the schools back up. This is where I learn best. Thank you, Peyton Brown.
Thank you. And thank you, Peyton, for submitting that. We appreciate it. Next, we have item 5A, reports from administrators. And we have Principal Tassin with us this evening. I think she's joining us via Zoom from Litchfield Middle School. There she is. Hi there.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Good evening, President Clymer, governing board members, and Superintendent Gunning. When I was asked to present tonight, I had to reflect on what might be the best way to represent Wigwam Creek Middle School. And I realized at that time, what's that? Oh, sorry. I realized at that time that our students and staff are why I come to work every day. And I couldn't think of a better way to represent Wigwam to let you hear from the people who matter most, and that's the students and staff. So we have put together a little video that shares what our students and staff love most about Wigwam Creek Middle School. And I just want to thank you all for this opportunity to share a little piece of our school family with you tonight.
Hi, my name is Serena and I work in the skills classroom. I like working at Wigwam because I have great coworkers, an amazing teacher, and awesome and fun students.
Hi, my name is Wendy and born from New York. I'm 11 years old and I like music work and teaching.
Everyone is nice. It's a very fun place to be with all the people around.
Safe, important, teachers, students, and everything, sure.
Mr. Lynn here, just telling you how awesome Wigwam is because we are unique, just like the people in it.
I think that Wigwam Creek is a great place to be at because you can always make new friends and ask the teacher for help if you need it.
About Wigwam Creek is how the lectures and how I would be so cool.
I love Wigwam Creek
Gabriel, and my favorite part about school or Wigwam Creek was the teacher at lunch.
And working at Whistle Creek, I love the students. I love doing activities with them, helping them grow, learn. I love working with my teammates. We do fun activities for the kids, and I love working with them. It's a great.
Well, Wigwam is a place to be because of the teachers that are supporting you in every way they can. You can make a lot of friends here at Wigwam as well, and everybody's so supportive and nice and caring. I love Wigwam too.
I'm grateful for the teachers that I have with. They focus along the way, nice, kind, someone that helpful too.
I like about Wigwam Creek is the teachers.
The things I like about Little Creek is they have really good teachers and they make the lessons interesting and make you laugh.
I like about Wigwam most is the food.
I love Little Creek.
I love Wigwam because of the teachers. And the reason why is giving us encouragement to keep on going.
That makes Little Creek a great place to be is how much the teachers appreciate helping their students.
It is to talk to the teachers and reach out to them if you need help with anything. And how easy it is to understand what we're doing.
Wigwam Creek is a cool school because we have great teachers who are very welcoming. And we have really cool toys.
What I love most about working at Wigwam Creek is the amazing students and the wonderful staff each and every day that welcome you with bright, warming smiles.
I am Marie, and this is my first year at Wigwam. I am a sixth grader, and the thing I love the most about Wigwam is the sweet and kind teachers we have, and they're very helpful.
Wigwam, I can name a lot of things about Wigwam. Wigwam's fun, it's awesome, it's cool.
Hey guys, I think Wigwam Creek is the best school because of all the teachers, the events that they have. It's just all the teachers are great and they have a great influence on all the kids. Thank you.
What do you like about going to Wigwam Creek?
Work?
The work you do?
Yes.
What else?
Go to the back.
You like going to the bank?
Yes.
Why do you like going to the bank?
Because it looks like a jungle to me.
Some good things about Wigwam is that they're an A+ school and they have really great teachers.
Every kid with different personalities.
Wigwam is a great place to be because of the family. We love our students and our staff so much, and it just makes everything better. It's a great place to be.
Favorite things about Wigwam Creek is that the staff are super nice, the teachers are super nice and respectful, and they'll take time out of their day to come help you and whatever you need, and it's super. I think Wigwam Creek is great. Teachers that help us.
Hey everyone, from the St. Bernard. I just want to say how much I love Wigwam Creek and all the students that are there. They're all special. I love that they all come back and say hi. I love my sixth grade team. Can't get better than them. It is a home away from home for me.
What do you like about going to Wigwam Creek?
Math, reading, writing.
And what else? Get in the bank? And what else?
I'm so thankful for how the teachers are helping us at Wigwam Creek. We're all going to stay safe at home and do our work. Thank you, teachers, for helping us and doing lots of work. Also, janitors, thank you for picking up the school.
Favorite thing about Wigwam Creek is how they make me feel safe, make me feel like I belong.
My name is Kai. I'm going to take
I like working at Wigwam Creek because I love working with the children and doing activities with them, helping them learn and grow. And I also love working with my teammates. My favorite thing about Wigwam Creek is that when it comes to holidays, the school is super big about it. And the teachers are super duper understanding, which I love about that. And it's such a bigger place, and that's why I love Wigwam Creek.
I love working at Litchfield Creek Middle School because of the clean, family-like atmosphere that you feel every single day when you walk through the doors. The students are amazing, and I couldn't do it without the amazing parents that I have been blessed to work with each and every single day.
I'm new Atkins, I'm new to Wigwam. I love it here so far. The staff is very friendly, the students are awesome. What I like most is that the school emphasizes that we have a strong connection.
Well, my name is Wigwam. The most thing I like about Wigwam is everyone.
Like Wigwam Creek because it has nice beaches and most of it is outside.
The best thing about Wigwam is the staff and how they're treating the situation. I think the best thing about Wigwam is the staff and teachers. One thing that I like about Wigwam is the grading system and how it's preparing us for high school. I like Wigwam Creek because of all the great teachers and staff.
I like Wigwam because I have a lot of my friends here and some of my favorite teachers.
Something that I like about Wigwam Creek is that the students who come here and the teachers and the staff are all super nice.
One of my favorite things about Wigwam is the teachers. They actually care about growth, not like some other schools.
About Wigwam Creek is how kind and understanding the teachers are. Like Ms. Gilbert and Mr. Hogan, and all my teachers this year and last year, and how kind the students are.
Hi, Wigwam. In my opinion, I think Wigwam is just great for the teachers and all the students because it just makes you wish you didn't have to ever leave school because of how great we actually get to bond with these people.
Something that I appreciate about Wigwam is that teachers are helpful to me when I don't understand.
I like Wigwam for its opportunities and clubs. Hey Jack, I would just like to give a shout out to everyone at Wigwam, to the staff and to the students. It's been very hard going online to school, especially with COVID around. So thank you all for trying your hardest. Hope you guys have a great day.
Landlady. You know what I think the best thing about Wigwam Creek is that in good times and in bad times, nobody has your back better than all your friends and family at Wigwam Creek.
So thank you for watching that with us this evening, and then just a shout out to all my teachers and students who participated in the making of that video.
Absolutely, thank you so much. And clearly a shout out to Chef Ron and his staff at Wigwam Creek because food and lunch and the meals there seem to be a big hit. So thank you, Chef Ron, and all the cafeteria workers there. Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. That video was awesome. I know a lot of kids probably don't like being on camera or seeing their bedrooms and things like that, but in times like this, when we have zero connection with any of our staff or students, or we can't be in school and things like that, it's really unique to be able to get to see everybody in their own environment and then doing their best to connect and engage with school, even despite the circumstances. So thanks for sharing that. That was really special. All right, well, I will open it up if there are any comments or questions. We're not going to go one at a time this time, just I'll let it be free for all. If anyone has anything that they have for the administrator reports, now is the time. Good. Okay, I do have something that I would like to say, I don't have any specific questions, but as I reviewed the reports from the administrators at the school sites and the district office this month in particular, I was really struck with an immense gratitude for a few things. The seemingly never-ending optimism that is generated at the campuses through all of the unusual circumstances that everyone is in right now, and the tireless efforts to reproduce all of these valued traditions that define our campus culture in new and creative ways during this distance learning. To be able to recreate those like sing-alongs online and the ways that people are still celebrating the seasons and so showing things they're thankful for, and even raising money for items for charities, doing angel trees, all of those sorts of things, on top of all of the other things, both academic and social emotional, that are being demanded of our teachers and our staff. So I'm very grateful for each and every member of my LASD family, and I wish you a restful and restorative winter break. You deserve it.
Absolutely. Anyone else have an idea? So as so frequently happens, Kim very eloquently says so much what I was thinking. I was going to take this minute for just a little love fest to the teachers and principals and the aides, cafeteria workers. These reports, and that's relatively new, and even previously we had information from different ways, but one of the things that I'm so grateful for is, especially with these reports, is it inspires me to do better all the time. I think your way of describing that optimism, I'm generally, glasses half full, and I said this a couple meetings ago, is, I struggle with that part of me with all of this. And we struggle it every day in my house. There's crying pretty much every single day in my home right now. And seeing that incredible effort made by every single school and the really beautiful differences. You see the personalities of these schools every day in these reports. You see the personalities of the leaders and the children and everybody on every single level. And we don't forget, like one of the kids mentioned, the janitors, is so important. It's such, and that's so much what a family is reaching out to every single person all the way around you and not forgetting anybody. And these reports that we get all the time just really show it time and time again and over and over. And then as a board member, as a community member, as a mother, I'm so appreciative of how much work all of the people on our campuses put in every day. I guess I should be looking over here. Camera thing messes me up too, like children. But I just want all of you, all of the staff, to know how much I appreciate the work you do for our community, for this district, how hard this has been for everybody. And I just want you to know it's appreciated and respected. And you all inspire me to do better. So. Thank you, Tanya. Elaine, do you have something?
I think it's probably the right time to say to him, thank you very much. I Thanks for sitting next to me this whole time. Merry Christmas to everybody. Kim, something struck me as you said what you said. I have never worked a job like working in the school, because every day you leave, 90% of you says, oh my God, I never want to come back here again. And then yet you get up that next morning, you're like, I can't wait to go back to school. You know, and that's what teachers go through. And then certainly by the end of the year, you're like, oh, I'm never coming back again. And then somehow you get, you know, amnesia and you forget what the last year was like. And so you're ready to do it all over again. So I understand exactly what both of you are saying as far as appreciation. And yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you.
Everybody's saying the same thing, but it's true. Like, I am constantly amazed at what our teachers and our staff are able to do. Like, no matter what we throw at them, they go above and beyond, and our kids are learning still, and it's hard, but the teachers are finding a way to make it work and to engage them. And so I just appreciate our staff for rolling with it, whatever it is we're throwing at them, because it's been a tough year. God, I hope it's the toughest year we ever have to go through, and that we don't ever have to go through anything like this again. But our teachers are just amazing, and our staff is amazing. And I agree, looking through the reports, it just seems like everything's still happy and good. The kids still look all excited, and it's exciting to see the ways we're still creatively engaging them, and that how schools are finding ways to keep even some of their special holiday events happening in a new and unique way, but still engaging them. So I just appreciate everything that everyone is doing. And just a small shout out to Mrs. Whiting at Scotland for getting the Teacher of the Month from PTA. Again, if you're PTA in this district, that's something you can put your teachers in every month. So I highly encourage our PTAs to look at the different options they have available for the various grants or awards and things like that. Because it's a great way to get your school recognized, your staff recognized, and get some extra money for various things that you're trying to do.
Okay, words of wisdom there. Thank you, ladies. We appreciate it. Let's transition right now to Superintendent's report.
Madam President, members of the governing board, lots to share with you tonight. Another component in really looking at operational features in this COVID situation is we also have our COVID crew for coverage, which is 9 district office people that deploy on an ongoing basis to help support coverage. And they do that and have continued to do that in this time, during this time. Some other celebrations that we have is Principal Janke and Executive Director Maggie DeClain and Director of Title I, John Scudder, presented at the NCA conference, so that was awesome. We're so proud of them. Paul Betts, Wendy McGee, and Tracy Hernandez have joined our LESD Foundation. We're very excited to have them on board. Principal Frazier joined the Goodyear Lead program, so she'll be attending training with the city of Goodyear over the next 3 months. ASPRA recognized our new website. We obtained a merit award for our brand new website, so that was awesome to receive that from them. Ms. Laird at Altona Sac received a STEM grant for $3,500 from Arizona Diamondbacks for Chromebooks. We have Grotto L, raised $4,800 for the American Heart Association also during this time. We have 113 students that are receiving services from Touchstone during this time. We want to recognize Ms. Sarah Robinson for receiving her BCBA, which is an amazing accomplishment. It takes a lot of hard work and dedication to obtain that, so shout out to Ms. Robinson. We'll be launching our school funding videos. So we have them up on our website, and we will be doing training with our executive, all of our principals and our directors, and then they'll roll them out to their staff. Employee engagement survey went out this week, and we also want to thank the Church of Litchfield Park for their generous donation for meals for our children. So we're very grateful for them. And so excited that so many of you will be joining us with our Pebble Creek Rotary on the 19th to deliver coupons to them. It's going to be a really nice, fun day.
Julie, can you just repeat the names of the folks that are joining the foundation board, please? Can you tell me the names of the folks that are joining the foundation board? I heard Paul Vance, but I didn't hear the others.
Wendy McGee,
Great, thank you. Awesome, awesome, despite everything else. So congratulations to those that were awarded grants and certifications. A lot of really good things going on right now. Okay, so we will start with reports from our governing board members. Tanya, I will give you a choice tonight, since it's your last official governing board meeting sitting up here on the dais. Would you like to go first or would you like to go last? Okay, I thought you might say that. So we're going to skip you over and we're going to go with Mrs. Elaine.
I thought you were going to say that exactly. Not a very busy month. I had the pleasure of attending the online Zoom meeting for the foundation, where I get to meet the new board members and talk about the new member that's coming on. You know, one thing that's really neat about it, and Shelley, I'm looking straight at you because you're on the call as well, and you have the same feeling. I think we're talking about our golf tournament that's going to be coming up, and it's just kind of exciting to plan the possibility of things getting back to normal, and or even working within the caveat of what we need to work in, just having something like that still at, you know, the grasp of our fingertips is happening. So attending that and the study session that we attended, that's pretty much all I did. Thanks.
I attended the study session as well, and I also attended the ASVA annual conference last week, which was frustrating at times, but it was still good. There's still lots of information there. I think actually my favorite session was the session that we had from our people here, from Megan and Mr. Yankee. I think that actually was my favorite one that I went to. I wasn't on board when we started conscious discipline stuff, and I'm completely honest that I have not been the #1 fan of it because I need to know more about it, and I know that I need to learn more about it. So that's why I'm excited for that workshop to be there and to be able to learn about it from our people. And it seems like the ones that most people were excited about, kind of the feeling that I was getting from everybody of all the workshops we went to. And then I also went and we voted for new board members for the ASVA board. And that was a long voting things are long. So I'm happy to represent our board in doing those things. Just so you know, whoever does it next year, it's not me. It's a lot of but it was good, and we elected 3 new board members, and I don't have my book with me because I brought the wrong book with me for my notes for that. We did elect 3 board members, so that was good. I'm excited to go back and watch some of the different presentations I didn't get to go to, because that's again one of the great things about having a virtual thing is that then they have it online for the month afterwards. So you can go back and watch all the different presentations, so you get to get all that information that you would otherwise get in person. Although I also am excited, I'm thinking about next year and the future when we get to go back to do things in person with people, because it's really nice to kind of have that mingling with other board members and getting to basically hear what they're going through, which is what you're going through. So I'm kind of going through the same stuff right now. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and this weekend I got to go Wigwam Creeks, the Hacienda del Rey Center over there is kind of off of that school, and they had a fundraiser event this weekend for Wigwam Creek, which is really fun because my kids are not going anywhere. So I was like, hey, we can go to this little drive-through thing. And so we got to buy some raffle tickets and we tried to fight, and they had 2 little setups, and Santa was there, and so the kids were really excited to wave Santa in the car, and then we ended up winning bikes, so that was pretty cool. So which worked out perfect because that's on my kids' wish list for stuff. Yeah, so that was a really cute idea, and I like seeing the ways that they are doing engaging people even if they can't be out in person.
Thank you, Melissa. This month, I had the pleasure of meeting with John Scudder, our director of Title I, to learn more about title funding, how we use it, what the restrictions are, the requirements, etc. So I would like to send a thank you to Mr. Scudder for sharing his experience and knowledge with me. As a result, I also reached out to the Title I principals to ask for additional information, and I'm grateful for the feedback and responses that they took the time to provide for me. It was a lot of information. There's multiple layers of complexity with that, and my brain is still digesting all the information, but it's in there now, and I hope to be able
to utilize that for the overall good at some point in the future. I was also honored to attend the ribbon cutting for Neck Park, which opened in Buckeye, honoring Buckeye Mayor Jackie Neck, who is retiring, as Mrs. Hornbeck mentioned earlier. It was a beautiful day in a beautiful setting just down the street from our Dorado schools. I also attended some ASBA webinars this month, but the majority of my work was focused on equity and the work that's being done there in our district. I attended the Diversity Empowerment Committee meeting that was on, I don't know the date, but we worked on the goals during that session. I also attended the study session that we had on both student achievement and on the equity statement. And I worked on the equity statement with getting feedback and input from the various stakeholders that I will include in my presentation, that will be included in the presentation later tonight. The last thing I would like to say is to Dr. Fitzer directly. When I first joined this board, you were the first person to welcome me, and I felt very welcomed by you, and I really appreciate that, the way you made me feel from the very, very beginning. And I appreciate and admire your intelligence, your experience, and your expertise, and that you are willing to share that and collaborate for the overall greater good. You will be greatly missed, and I'm very thankful that we were able to work together.
It's just so great and so hard to follow you. In the essence of time and knowing that, as you know, after listening to meetings month after month, several of us do the same things. We go to the same things. We go to the same webinars. We attend the same conferences. Of course, it's all virtual, so we don't actually get to see each other and collaborate, but we do hear the same content and hopefully are able to digest that. So I won't go through the entire month's worth of webinars and conferences. But what I would like to say is to Megan and Luke and to John Scudder. I watched each of your presentations. John, I think I got to see yours twice because he also wanted to take Megan into Luke's slot. No, I'm just kidding. We had a little technical difficulty, and it was very interesting that both of the Litchfield people got confused, and John's played twice. But it was riveting information about teacher evaluation, so I will say I needed to hear that the second time around, so it was worth it. But I'll take a little different than Melissa did. I was here from the beginning of conscious discipline. I can remember sitting in the conference room in our district office and Megan standing up there and giving this PowerPoint presentation and me not being able to take my eyes off of you. I didn't, and I mean that like very heartfelt. I mean, the information was interesting and I wanted to learn more about it, but the passion that I saw coming out of you, I just thought, I don't really know her all that well. It was my first year. I hadn't worked with you very much, but I thought anyone who can have this much research and this much understanding and this much passion for something is going to take us places. And that's exactly what you've done. So thank you very much. I remember that day. And every time I even have a question or a thought about conscious discipline and how it fits in and how we afford to pay for it and how it integrates, all of the things that we think of as we sit up here, I always go back to that day and remember how I felt walking out of there thinking, this is going to be something I'm going to remember. And in fact, it has been. So, and I will say, it makes me proud to sit up here and to be a part of that in a very small way. It makes me proud to say that I'm from the Litchfield School District. When we go to ASBA conferences and people like you and Luke stand up and talk about conscious discipline, and John Scudder talks about teacher evaluation and the importance of that during this very odd time of virtual learning. It puts us in a leadership role and allows people to look at us as innovators, problem solvers, and people that are doing more with less. And those are all aspects that, we up here couldn't ask for anything more from you guys in that respect. So thank you for representing us well. And for John and out there, if you're watching, thank you. It's a heartfelt thank you for representing us so well and putting us in the forefront of, state educators and people that are in a leadership position that can then take these programs and these ideas and innovations to their school district. And we're not only making an impact on the 10,000 kids that go to our school, we're making an impact on a million Arizona school students. And that number is not lost on me. So thank you and congratulations. Also, I just want to wish everyone happy holidays, no matter what you're celebrating. But please be safe, and please know that the decisions that we make over the next couple of weeks will change the course of how we operate our schools coming back in January. So we wish you all the happiest of holidays, but please stay safe and stay close to home. Okay. That will wrap up our informational reports. We'll move on to 7. Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. I'm just so used to going last. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. No, sorry, Tanya. For her last official governing board informational report, Dr. Tanya Fisher.
All right, so I tried to write a speech and I'm not super good at that. I'm pretty good at talking, not so much speech writing. So there are a couple little things though I didn't want to forget to say, and for the most part, this is a bunch of thank yous and wish wells and gratefulness. So one day I was sitting on the beach, potentially with a cocktail in my hand. I'm about out of here, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. And I get a phone call, and it's summer vacation. We're on our family beach trip on Camp Pendleton. And Corey, my sister-in-law, Corby Naylor, calls me, and she's got Molly Evans in the background. We hear her, just ask her. And I'm like, what are they talking about? And they say, so have you ever thought about running for the board? And I'm like, what board are you talking about? And they said the school board. And I was like, well, no, I haven't. And they said, well, there's an election coming up and there's a bunch of vacancies and we've talked about it. We think you'd be great. And I said, well, what exactly would that entail? Oh, like you just go to a meeting like once a month. It's totally no big deal. Like it's really gonna be not much. It's not gonna take a bunch of time. It's gonna be great. You know all about education. You've got kids in our district. Your mom was a teacher. You spent hours in the classroom, cutting out laminated things and putting things on bulletin boards. You'll be amazing. I'm like, oh, all right. Well, what does that entail? And so they go through the process of the signatures and all those things, and I agreed and came back from the vacation and began the work of what it actually was. When I realized I had to go get all those signatures, I somehow realized I got shystered out of the deal that I thought was going to be so easy. But when it was all done, the amount of support I had was pretty amazing, and it really made me feel pretty special, which is always a good thing. Once I got on the board and things began, again, reality shifted, and this little job turns into almost immediately turns into boundaries, which was super fun, especially that first time around. And I mean, I was a deer in the headlights. I had no idea what I was doing. It was a growing experience. And as time went on, obviously I learned and I grew, and this board grew so tremendously. And I'm super proud, and honestly, I have very little to do with it, but so super proud of where this board has come, and how much it is strengthened and has become more active. It's really, really incredible. One of the things that I think Danielle was the only other one there when we went to the board retreat. One of the things that we learned was how incredible lucky we are, not just because our district's amazing, our teachers are amazing, our parents and our kids are amazing, everyone's great, but as a board, we function the way we really should. And we all look at things differently. We all have different ideas and different ways to go about things, but fundamentally it all boils down to we all have the right purpose. We all have the same purpose. And so I was reflecting, you know, what is the big things I learned? And we talk a lot about the Litchfield way and what is that? And for a long time, I always called it, and I still call it, it's my favorite, is to call it our special sauce. I think it's our special sauce. And it really just boils down that we all have a common goal. And fundamentally, it's all about what's best for kids. It's a simple way to put it. It's not fancy or eloquent, but it's just reality. And I think every person on this board and the board and all the members before me all had it. And that's what makes us work. When we go to those retreats, I would say, I mean, literally probably half of the classes at the retreat, at the, I'm sorry, the convention, I'm saying retreat convention, was literally about how to not fight. It's really, that was it. It was about how to go along and get anything done. And, you know, we're so far beyond that. And it's really, really special. And we're not carbon copies of each other. And that's what makes it even better. So, so it took me 6 years to figure out what that special sauce was, I suppose. But I think it's super, super important. It's very unique and it will always continue to evolve. But I want to make sure that I task Jeremy, don't lose that, because that is special. And it's functional, it's purposeful, and it's effective. A couple of things I didn't want to forget. I wanted to make sure that I thanked the admin team that from day one, every person in this room and that are usually in this room have been so accessible and so helpful. Wendy, you are magic. I will always admire you. Your ability to make things happen when we thought it wasn't possible, and to be as accommodating and so incredibly responsible. None of it can happen without your magic and your the confidence that I've always had in your decisions. I don't have to think about it. Megan, you're sitting here, the passion, you're the queen of passion. You bring that passion every day in everything you do. You have since the minute I met you more than 6 years ago. And again, such a huge part of that special sauce. Jody, I would never in a second ever want to be in your shoes. You've been thrown to the wolves from the second that we picked you, and even before we picked you, you were a bit thrown to the wolves. It was a rough transition, to put it lightly. You did it with grace and integrity. Your integrity will never be questioned in my mind. And I think you're an incredible leader. I value you. I'm very happy to have this district in your hands. Nothing, nobody could do this perfectly, and you've done it with a level of grace that is really impressive to me, and again, inspiring. Like I said, there's so many people on a regular basis, but one of the people I think out of everybody, and we thank people all the time, our teachers and our admin and our principals, everybody else, but Amy is truly the unsung hero, I think, on this board, this district as a whole. Amy is the one that knows all of the things, What time is the meeting? Where is the meeting? What's the rule? What's the law? What's in our paperwork? Can you get me this? Can you give me that? Amy, this entire district would crumble to pieces without Amy. She's always quietly in the background answering the questions as we look up. Am I breaking a rule? Right? And we've all been there. Amy, I'm allowed to say that. Amy, I'm allowed to do that. You really know all the things. And I did not want to miss this opportunity to tell you how absolutely amazing you are, how I've appreciated you from the very second I was on this board and I was a fledgling here in the headlights. And I'm hoping that you will continue to help the rest of us and the rest of the board as we continue. So thank you, Amy, for keeping me out of trouble and keeping me legal
and helping me know where to go all the time. Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Kudos and celebration. It just makes us all feel. Okay. Okay, now we have gotten through that part of the agenda. Now let's see if we can speed up through the things that we can here. Next up is our consent agenda. I'm going to jump off and make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. I second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will move on. For those following, that was item 7A. The consent agenda takes us down to number 13 on our agenda. Informational reports. 13A, governing board goals for 2021 school year, update and review. I will let Elaine and or Melissa talk about their governing board goal number 2. I apologize, my computer just died, so I'm kind of going to go off my hip here, which is not unusual. Embedded inside of the agenda are 4 items that we have discussed over the amount of time that we have been talking about this. The first one, I also sent this in an email. Amy, thank you very much. If you want to open the folder in the email, you can see all 4 at the same time. The original list that we talked about alongside the items that are typically in Jody's board report added to that. The last time we talked, we went over these items. It was discussed if anybody had anything else that they wanted to add on, to go ahead and give us a heads up. We didn't hear from anybody, so we're moving forward with what was on that list. We also added in the testing from Brad's presentation the other day. Brian. And Amy was kind enough to send us today kind of an outline of what she also has. So we're going to take all this information and we're going to put it into what is a traditional calendar format. Yeah, and there's an example of that as well from what Amy has. Once we say, yes, this is all the information that we want, I've been in touch with Amy and she will load it all in. We'll pull up our Google Calendar just like we do every time. And we'll be able to open every date that is subject to the information, and we'll go from there. That's it. Okay, so it seems like there's 2 things I just want to clarify. So one is the actual functional calendar that all of these things will be loaded into, which is, kind of our behind the scenes Google Calendar to keep us all going in the right direction. Correct. The second piece to that was the kind of the board agenda calendar, right? The like what we're just like overall what we're discussing each meeting. That's what she has. That's okay. I just want to make sure there's 2 things. There's like a fiscal calendar, and then the other one are just sort of breaking up, which we had done in the past. But there were some additions of these are the things that we're now going to talk about just at a year view of all the different months. Okay. Change, but so we have a heads up. And then Megan also sent me, which I'm sorry I did not include. It's in an email. I'll send it. It's the conscious discipline topics. Oh, okay. I believe there were 6 of them, 7 of them that she sent me. 7. And what we'll end up doing is we will rotate those. So we'll start with 1, go through 7, and then go back to 1 again. And then it's just a matter of at our next study session, not the one coming up, but maybe the one in January, we can all take notes and draw names as to who falls to where. Right. Yes. Okay. For the meetings. Okay. I will open up the floor. Were there any comments or questions on either the physical calendar kind of items or the more agenda type calendar items? Yeah, I'm just, okay, so just tell me how I'm going to see this information. So, we submitted the topics that we wanted to see, such as student supplement information or student discipline information or class size review, that sort of thing. So basically, how am I going to know when that information is coming?
Well, that's what we'll end up doing is we will pick those particular items. If there is specific reports that you want to know about, that we can coordinate with, get that information typically comes out during that year of surveys or whatnot after the testing, and then we'll go into that.
Okay, so probably it would be like either provided in a Friday update or provided in, on a study session. Okay, okay. Sorry, I'm just looking at this. So the document entitled Working Governing Board Agenda Calendar 2021, right now currently goes through the end of February. So will that document keep just being recreated so that we know?
The one that,
So yeah, it kind of breaks out the regular meeting and the study session and what the action is going to be and what the reports are going to be. And I think that's what you're getting at. So that will be updated. So we'll know.
in January, we will have, if you like that format,
Mhm.
we will have the entire year that will look similar to that.
Over each month. Okay, perfect. Okay, that's what I figured. I just wanted to. Okay. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. No, this is amazing. I know this is going to be a lot of work to put it together, and hopefully the first time we get to template that, and then each year it will be easy to sort of fill that in. Hopefully, but yeah, no, this is, I think, excellent to keep us all organized and give us a chance to look a month or two ahead about what that information might be, and get you questions in a timely fashion rather than so soon before the meeting. So this is fantastic. Thank you guys. Great work putting this together. With the help of Amy, we appreciate it as always. Yeah, awesome. Well, that's great. I mean, we have so many different mechanisms to get information. So having it all in the same place, you don't forget where you saw something because you've got to go back. I think this is great. Yeah, this is perfect. Thank you guys very much. I will just do a very quick review of goal number 4. So I know we obviously aren't doing really any in-person things. I know we've talked about that. We've kind of put it off a little bit, but one little small piece of progress I have made is that I will say decided, we agreed, we talked about earlier, that we would do potentially a quarterly newsletter, update from the board or from me, whoever. So I am working on that, and I will send that to Amy for review in the Friday update. So that will come out in January, and we will either be able to rotate and take turns if you want to do it that way. If you want to submit ideas and feedback, I'm happy to write it on behalf of the board, however we want to work that, but I will take on the responsibility for quarter 1. So you will see that in the next Friday update for just review and feedback and things like that. And then I'll work with Amy to figure out how and where is best to post that and make sure that that information is readily available. This will kind of be the first step in our kind of board education piece. As we move forward, there'll be other ideas coming forward and how to communicate with our community on how to find us, how to communicate with us, where things are in the district, and what our role is here. So more information to follow on that. Okay, moving on. Thank you, Melissa and Elaine, for getting together and doing that. We are officially halfway through our board goals for the year. And we're halfway through the school year, so we're right on time. Let's move forward to 13B, update on governing board policy EEAA. This is our walkers and bus riders. And I believe Tommy is there. You are. Hey, Tommy.
Good evening, Good evening, Governing Board President, members of Governing Board, and Superintendent Gunning. I come to you tonight with just an update. In September, the Transportation Department came to you to propose extending the walk boundary from 1 to 2 miles, and we discussed coming back in December to update kind of where we are at. So I'm here to do that with you tonight.
Tommy, are you still there?
I am still here. I hear you now.
Okay.
So this year, after the motion passed and we extended our walk boundary to 2 miles, we asked parents to register for the bus for this school year. After that, we were able to get a clear picture of who would be utilizing the bus service. We identified areas that resided, or students that resided more than 2 miles. And then we were able to add students that were between the 1 and 2 miles. I'm glad to announce that as of November, before we went back to digital learning, we were able to accommodate all those parents that requested that live between 1 and 2 miles. Unfortunately, with the continuation of our driver shortage, we are still short 13 drivers at this point, including 2 resignations from November. I would ask that we go ahead and continue with what we propose in September a little farther, so we can continue to do what we do when we do come back to in-person learning. We are still currently reviewing applications. We've had 4 applicants in September. Unfortunately, those 4 were not qualified candidates for the position. And I have to let you know that the student transporters and monitors have been the reason behind our success through this transition. They're constantly flexible and committed to whatever's asked of them to make sure our students succeed. At any given moment, a change in plans, they are on it in a heartbeat. We are still accepting applications for student transporters. The Department of Motor Vehicles is processing CDL applicants as a priority over normal Class B licenses, and medical offices are accepting appointments for the physicals because CDL holders are considered essential workers. We are able to offer the required 14 hours of classroom training and 20 hours behind the wheel while practicing our physical distancing. And our district is still higher on the pay scale for student transporters in districts surrounding us. We do offer full medical benefits for our student transporters at a guaranteed 28 hours a week. I am also happy to say that one of our trainees that we have right now is in her final stage and is doing her behind the wheel. So we could see within the, probably right after Christmas break, winter break, she will be testing to become a certified student transporter.
Fantastic. Thanks for the update, Tommy. Just to reiterate and really just for clarification so that I make sure I understand. Your recommendation is to continue with the policy that we made earlier this year, I believe it was September. However, you have been able to accommodate anyone who has been in the position between the 1 and 2 mile that was changed. You've been able to accommodate those families and get those children to school. So
yes.
there's no overhaul to the way things are actually working. It's just keeping the policy there. It gives us some flexibility in terms of how we are utilizing the drivers that we still have. Is that correct?
That is correct. And a huge thank you to parents in our community for transporting students on their own. That has really helped keep our numbers on the buses down from what would normally be assigned. So we have been able to accommodate anyone that lives between the 1 and 2 miles, which is what our normal reading for the policy is in a normal school year if we can get back to it.
Right, absolutely. Yes, thank you very much to all parents. I remember sitting here in August and September and really, asking or potentially begging parents to help us do that with the staff challenges, Tommy, that you've had in transportation, and also just knowing that we wanted to do as much social distancing and safety measures on your buses for the drivers and students as we possibly could. So thank you to all of our families that have been willing to transport your kids and things like that and help us keep our buses running. So just as a recap to the board, we asked for this recap. There's no motion or voting needed tonight, but just as an information so that we knew where we were struggling early on in September about changing this and knowing that it would obviously be a burden for some of our families. Knowing that we've been able to accommodate everyone that has absolutely needed our services to be relieved. So do you have any questions or comments for Tommy or anyone else in regards to this policy? Okay. Thank you, Tommy, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great night, guys.
You too. Okay, moving on. We will skip item 14A because we do not have any items from the consent agenda this evening. We will move on to 14B, which is our Wendy, I don't know, do you need to, is there anything further that you need? This is the budget revision that we were presented earlier in the public hearing, correct?
I'd like to just add one more thing to that. So the budget that we are looking at tonight of adopting is based on only the enrollment decrease. It is not decreased for the additional 5% before being in distance learning. So I do anticipate in January learning from the Department of Ed an additional cut of about $3 million. But for tonight, it only includes the reduction for the student.
$3 million, that's a lot, Wendy. Okay, and when will the next revision be? You said January?
Normally, we don't revise again until May, but I will know hopefully in January, the additional amount through the 40th day.
Okay.
And then again, they're going to request our DLA percentage at the very end of the year, and they'll adjust the budget again based on how much time we spend in distance learning.
Okay. You're just keeping track of it as we go so that we know what to expect.
Yes.
In May.
And
We're
my
not surprised.
Yes, and my assumption of the 3 million is we pretty much are in distance learning the entire time. You know, I'm conservative. I take the
Yeah, the worst case scenario and kind of back it in.
But I just wanted to be aware of that.
Understood. Okay. Any last minute questions or comments for Wendy before we move to the vote? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 2020-2021 expenditure budget revised number 1 as presented.
I second.
Thank you. Any last minute comments or questions? No? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on our list, 14C, approve the opening of the Litchfield Elementary School District Digital Learning Academy, or DLA as we call it, as School 17 in August of 2021. I believe we have Mrs. DeCoste presenting on Zoom.
Yes, good
Hey,
evening. I'm here. And you guys had have the presentation and
Hold just a minute, Gina. I think we have you on.
Can you hear me?
There we go. We
Can
can
you
hear you
hear
now.
Okay, good evening.
Okay, good evening.
Ooh. Sorry, it's echoing. So you have the presentation. I answered a few questions earlier. I don't know if you had more questions or if you wanted me to go through it point by point, or if you just wanted to take turns asking questions.
I had a couple of questions. Does anyone else have questions? Okay, I'll go ahead. I had asked, this is such a non-typical way, right, to start a school. So we're doing it a little bit differently. And we're doing it, under extreme circumstances. And so I'm trying to get an understanding just from a 30,000 foot level of what is it really going to take to sustain this program, because it's something we've never done. The funding formula is different. And, we have kind of a basic operation, right? So looking at the notes here, we have principal, we have an office manager, registrar, instructional coach, student advisor, behavior coach, all of these extremely important positions that our schools can't function without. I'm just kind of asking, what is the cost to operate this? If we do find space, and Jody, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that, and I feel like I have a conversation with you, that you said we will find space within our campuses or district office, something like that. So that won't be paid for space. We won't have to do that. Okay. So what is that overall cost? I see here in the notes it's $115,000, but I can't believe that all of those positions combined only equal $115,000. So how do we, just in terms of the solvency of the whole thing, what is it going to take to operate the school for students even show up?
Well, some of the operating costs are in the technology pieces, and those are addressed early in the presentation. But as far as staffing, we're staffing from within the staffing that we already have. So we're taking current people and putting them into positions because they're just students that we're moving basically from one school to another. I kind of look at it like when we opened Mabel Paget, we did not hire anyone from outside the district until the very last minute. We hired 1 or 2 teachers, but basically we built a school and staffed it completely from within because we had the existing population. But obviously we need a principal at that site, so that's an additional cost. And then the student advisor, the coaching position, increasing that to 2. So it's kind of just moving people around to go with the kids. Now the funding piece is a little bit different for DLA. We get 95% of the funding that we get for a student who's in the brick and mortar. So when figuring out the cost of how full a classroom has to be to fund a teacher, depends on the class size. So once we reduce class sizes over the last couple of years, Wendy's kind of had to change that formula anyways. So the cost, I guess what I'm saying, the cost is minimal compared to opening up a brick and mortar school, basically. And we're taking existing students that we already have some we would probably lose if we didn't keep and open the school. So and we will know as we go. And the nice thing is we can kind of control the cost because we can limit the program if we don't have the space, and we can limit how many kids are accepted. So like we put in the plan, it's to start it like we would typically start at K-8, where we have K through 5 with 3 teachers at every grade level. In our typical class sizes, to have that equity across the district of same class sizes for all, and not having huge class sizes for DLA like we did this year. And then for 6th through 8th, having 4-person teams, so 4 teachers for each grade level. And then we would just go to our capacity and then close, or if we have enough to add another class, then we would add another class at that grade level if we could. Or if we don't have enough, then we don't have a teacher at that grade level. So we have a lot more flexibility. And with our enrollment being down, we're going to find space on our current campuses to house our teams. And we're not quite sure where those are going to be yet, but the goal would be to keep them together. One of our schools, or 1 or 2 of our schools, may have an entire pod of classes that's empty where we could put, Dan, we talked to Dan about putting up portable walls and having those 3 kinder teachers in one room together with the spaced out, because we've seen reading rooms run really efficiently with kids in the classroom, with 3 groups of kids in one classroom. So we're thinking that teachers could do that. And then we could have K-5 in an entire pod at a school working together, or working from home too also could be an option. So a lot of the details will just kind of come as we go through the process. If everything gets approved tonight, our next step is, Marlene Capristo, the current administrator for DLA, we have a letter ready to roll out to parents, and we have a commitment form. So we'll be doing somewhat of a priority registration for our current DLA students, sending a letter explaining how things will be next year, sending the approved program guide, and then asking them to commit, if they're going to commit to DLA, to do that by December 18th. So we could have a report back to you guys at your January meeting on exactly how many current students we're anticipating on staying. And then we would expand farther on that if we need more students, or if we don't need more students, we'll go from there.
Okay. Are there any plans, and this might be later on in this isn't probably the first thing right now, but once we find out the commitment levels in December, January time, when you start to make your staffing allocations, are there any plans to do any, marketing efforts? Since this is one of those programs where we can more easily expand than we can in a brick and mortar situation. So if we need to pull more teachers or add, is there a possibility that we can even expand that student base, not just from our Litchfield students, but we can start to go out to the rest of the community? This is their chance to get into our district, or maybe they haven't had a chance before.
Yes, yes, Danielle, that's the beauty of it. And one thing that we've heard from the parents that they really liked, well, you saw the parent survey from DLA, is the live interaction with teachers. And you don't get that so much with as many online schools around the area. And even some of our public schools that are doing AOIs are using things like Schoolology, where there really isn't a lot of live interaction. And parents really like that. I think that's a huge selling point for this program. And we could see it expanding. We kind of want to get it off the ground, get the rest of our schools settled with the decrease in enrollment that we saw this year, see how we bounce back from COVID and kind of see where we're at, and then start planning for that expansion.
One of the other things that Shelley and I are working on right now is marketing. Want to be prepared and ready to roll with that. One step left.
Can I just remind you guys, if you don't speak directly into your microphone, we cannot hear you out here in the virtual world. Superintendent Gunning,
YouTube land, okay.
Hear that? Yes.
Sorry, Jeannie. I was just sharing with her that Shelley and I are putting together a marketing plan for when we do reopen, for trying to increase that enrollment and bring our enrollment back so we can embed this program within the advertisement and the tools and materials we share.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, I would like to ask a question or really make a comment. It may turn into a question. So, Ms. DeCoste, my only hesitation with this, and I'm supportive of DLA, I think this is going to be really successful, innovative, and it is, I think it's going to be wonderful. But it feels just a little bit like we're putting the cart before the horse. So normally we've done the studies, we see what the growth is happening in our district, we place a school in that area, and we change the boundaries, and we know there are going to be children that show up to that school. With the fact that we haven't asked the parents to make that commitment at this point, and we're not sure where those numbers are going to be, that's my only hesitation here is if we approve this tonight and we say, yes, we want DLA to happen, and we get to March and the numbers just aren't there, can we back out of this?
Okay, that's a great question, Kim. We wouldn't need to back out of it because we can scale the school to be any size that we need it to be. If that were the case, then we would cut back on staffing. You wouldn't see 2 instructional coaches. You wouldn't see. So Wendy has a staffing formula for our schools based on student numbers. So we would just use that. So we would back off on the staffing. And maybe possibly, like if you're saying if that were the scenario, then we would start smaller than that. And it really, I know it seems rushed because of COVID, but when I started this position, this was one of the first things that Wendy and I talked about. I mean, she handed me a folder with online schools and we went through it. And I've been doing research and looking at Paradise Valley. You know, they have a huge online program for their district. They're one of the big schools. So we've been looking at it and thinking, but there were so many other things. Opening Belen Soto came first and things like that. So it is something that had been on the back burner that we had been doing our own research on, not surveying parents, but we know that parents in our area do go to online schools based on some exit surveys that we have. We don't have great data on, like, I think what you're looking for, but I do think the fact that we have, I mean, I would pretty much bet on the fact that we will have 700 kids that will say, yes, I want to stay in DLA, if not more, based on the parent surveys that came back and how happy people are with the program.
Okay, excellent. And I know that other schools, including charter schools within our boundary areas, are also following suit with this and offering more permanent distance learning opportunities. You know, one of the things that I really liked about the DLA, and you brought it up, what Gina said is that you can scale it to whatever the current need is at that time. As far as moving the teachers into a certain location, I've heard that, for one example, that the kinder DLA that is working with LES, that she's amazing and everybody loves her and the team is really cohesive. So something to consider, you don't have to find a central location, meeting them where they are, so that next year something to be working in the right direction. So kudos to that teacher.
Elaine, they've done such a fantastic job doing this modified online schooling, AOI, because most schools are a separate school. And in the beginning, that's what some people thought we may end up doing, but keeping everybody on their campus has, I think, really been a nice transition where you can learn to be an online teacher, but you also have the support of all the other teachers and what they're doing in the classroom. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, but they do miss that collaboration amongst other teachers. They're doing exactly what they're doing. So
I had a question kind of with what he was saying about people, and I know that we can scale it back, but we can't really scale middle school back too much, right? Because we have to have the 4 classes for them to have the 4 different sections. So is there a make or break it number for middle school we have to hit in a grade level in order to have it?
I think you asked, you faded in and out a little bit there, Melissa, but I think you were asking if there's a make it break it level for middle school. Is that what you were saying? A certain number? Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd say right about 150 per grade level.
120.
120. Okay.
So that's 126 graders, 127, 128, right? In 120 in each individual grade.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But again, those numbers don't always work out in our middle schools either, and they have to be flexible and creative and in the ways that they do things too. So
I think middle school will be easier to fill than the elementary school actually, but I just was wondering because that's a little less open than it is in elementary school. So.
mm-hmm.
Okay, I see the calendar here in terms of kind of the timeline for your implementation for next spring. So I'm assuming no matter what happens here, we will have just regular updates at our monthly meetings or quarterly, or we're having to kind of see what's going on, and obviously with our staffing and numbers as you start to see some real commitments come in through our current DLA students, and then of course I'm assuming opening it up to everyone else in the district as well.
Yes, the first information that we'll give you will be the results of the parent commitment survey. So we'll give you the initial numbers, and then we'll go through the staffing process of hiring a principal and then building it up from there. But we'll keep you guys involved every step of the way.
Any other questions, comments, or feedback? No? Okay, I will entertain a motion for item 14C.
I move to approve the opening of the Litchfield Elementary School District Digital Learning Academy as School 17 in August 2021.
I second. I feel like this is a very big moment, but it doesn't feel very big because this format is not a big deal. I mean, I remember voting to open the Minnesota when I felt very different than I do right now. So I guess I'm a little timid and a little scared in this format, right? We have no idea what's going to happen. But on the other hand, as we're sort of reminiscing with time leaving and going back to the beginning of days of Jody and things like that, one of the number one things I remember saying to her the first time that she walked in the room as a superintendent was that we are here to support you, and we expect you to innovate. We expect you to do things that make us uncomfortable and to make us different and to set us apart. And as scared and as maybe untimely as this seems to us, you are doing exactly what we asked you to do. So thank you for that. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. We are now in District 17 school. Congratulations, everyone. Next item up, 14D, second reading and adoption of policy revision BEDB, the agenda. Oh, yes. This says I don't even need your mask to walk in. This is their eyes. And she's like, no, I'm not talking about it. You were so excited that you didn't have to present to me things earlier tonight. Okay, as a quick recap, we went through potential agenda changes, which our agenda is in policy, so that's why we're going through this policy. We discussed adding our conscious discipline efforts at the beginning of our meeting. There are 4 listed here. As we mentioned earlier, those can rotate. We can do 1, we can do 4, we can do any number of those in between, so that's a little bit flexible there. Also, what it will do is it will move our action items up a little bit further. So the voting and probably the meat of what a lot of our watchers at home and our constituents are tuning in for will be a little earlier on. I want to address one of the issues that we had with moving kind of the report and the discussion items down below was that sometimes on occasion we may have an informational report that would shed some light on in what will now be the D subsection with recognitions and presentations, that's where those will be housed if there is something that needs to happen prior to. So some presentations do go during that time, even right now, but we will make that effort to put everything before the action items that has any weight to what we might be discussing later on. After the action items, we'll have our information and discussion only items, and then our reports. Just as another sort of recap, the reason that we are doing this is to not only modify our process and make us more efficient and effective, but to really try and shorten our meetings without getting rid of any of the important items in the meat of why we're here. So that was the purpose of this, and I hope that we, with our collective feedback from last time, and I hope that everybody is kind of saw their changes being reflected in this. But I personally am happy with where this landed, and hope that we can continue to stay true to our processes and the way that we have done things, but also be a little more efficient. I know I can work on that too. Any comments or questions about this policy? So this is our second read, so we are available to adopt this revision of the policy tonight. Everyone's just wowed by the new agenda, right? No comments. Well, I'm going to take that as a good sign. So I'm going to move forward, and I will motion that we adopt the policy revision of BETB, the agenda as presented. I second. Okay. Any last comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And starting in January, we will begin this new process with the agenda. Okay. Item 14E, possible adoption of governing board equity statement. Then our governing board member, Kim Moran, is going to present. So I'll just give her a second to make her way down to the podium.
Good evening, President Clymer, fellow members of the governing board, and Superintendent Gunning. I am here this evening to present to you information on the proposed adoption of an equity statement for our district. I am Kimberly Moran. I am not only a governing board member for the Litchfield Elementary School District, but I am a proud member of the Diversity Empowerment Committee. Adopting an equity statement aligns with every pillar and the majority of our goals that are outlined in our strategic plan, from numerous aspects and goals included in student success to numerous aspects of our people as well. Next slide. To service as well as finances and resources. So why an equity statement? I want to give a little bit of history here on how this has potentially come to be. The events of 2020 have increased awareness and discussion around equity, diversity, and inclusion in our district. So in light of that, and in light of people wanting to learn more and find out what they could do about some of the disparities, on July 16th of this year, we as a district launched the Diversity Empowerment Committee, which from here on in the presentation will be known as DEC. The committee consists of 17 members who represent various identities, 8 of our Litchfield campuses, and a variety of stakeholder roles, from parents to teachers to administrators, district staff, and we also have a student transporter, and they allowed me as a governing board member to also be involved in that committee. As a result of that, to date, the Diversity Empowerment Committee meetings have included training on equitable achievement outcomes in education, barriers to student success, as well as we engaged in affinity group sharing and learning and data analysis. So we really got to come together and learn about a shared language, share with each other our own stories of where we're coming into this, what our angle is, what our experiences have been, and learn from other people's experiences as well, and try to put ourselves in their shoes and look at things from a different perspective. So it's been a great experience overall. The results of the Diversity Empowerment Committee data analysis is the primary driver of the proposed equity statement. I do want to take a moment to say this presentation, the presentation of this data is not required, but it is important for transparency so that all of the stakeholders who are listening to this or who might want to come back and get an answer to the question of why an equity statement would have that shared knowledge as to how this came to be. Transparency is a priority for our governing board, even when the data is not favorable. So let's take a look at the data and what we saw as a group through the Diversity Empowerment Committee and what we've since shared with the governing board, and again, has become the instigator for this equity statement. The first thing we're going to look at is representation. So this information shows ethnicity by group, broken out between Asian, Black, Hispanic, white, and then those people who identify with 2 or more of those ethnicities, as well as American Indian and Native Hawaiian. The first column of information you're going to see there is going to be our student population. So in our student population, we have the various numbers that you see there. The largest 2 of those ethnic groups are Hispanic at 43% and white at 41%. The next column has our classified staff. Classified staff is going to consist of our food service folks, our custodial staff, our student transporters, and our office staff, as well as our classroom aides and things like that. So when we look at our classified staff data and we talk about representation, and what representation really means is, are we as a staff representing and mirroring back to our student population themselves? Are they able to see themselves in these various types of staff that we have? And when it comes to classified staff, the numbers aren't bad. They're pretty representative. But the issue comes in when we look at certified staff. So our certified staff, when we look at those numbers, the biggest disparity there is the Hispanic population. We have 43% of students who are Hispanic. We only have 11% of certified staff. And by certified staff, we're talking teachers. 83% of our certified staff are white. When we go to the administrators, the disparity only increases. Only 12%, which is relatively close to what our certified staff is Hispanic, but 88% are white. We have 0 representation of Asian or Black, or 2 or more in our administrative population. So the equitable representation of our student population diminishes significantly when we look at the differentiation between classified staff to certified staff to administrators. And I'll go one step beyond that to say the numbers are even worse when we look at our governing board. We are 100% white. The next thing that we can look at are our demographics when it comes to discipline. We have the same ethnic groups that are listed here that were on our representation information, same information in the student population. But one of the things that we looked at when it came to discipline were suspensions. And there's a large disparity specifically in the demographics when we look at our Black students. We have a 5% Black student population, but 19% of our suspensions involved Black students. Equitable discipline diminishes significantly for Black students. Let's look at achievement. Included in this slide is the ELA AZ Merit Proficiency Scores for 2018 and 2019. Not actually the scores, but the number of students who are considered proficient or higher. The only ethnic groups that I had the information specifically for here are Asian, Black, Hispanic, and white. If you look at the information, we included 2 years to make sure that there weren't any anomalies between one year or the other. Our Asian population has the highest percentage of students who tested as proficient in ELA for AZ Merit. Our white population comes in second with 65% roughly for both years. Below that is our Hispanic population at the high 40 range, and then the Black population in the low 40 range. Equitable achievement in the ELA diminishes significantly for Black and Hispanic students. This is an equity disparity. Let's take a look at math. Similarly here, we have the math AZ Merit proficiency numbers for 2018 and 2019. The numbers look pretty similar. Actually, they're a little bit worse when it comes to our Black population. The Asian students have scored the highest. 2019 is a little bit different on the math. White students coming in next, 66% of those students are proficient or higher. But only 37% of our Black students are scoring proficient or higher in AZ Merit math, as well as Hispanic population is less than 50%. So again, this goes to show that our equitable achievement in math diminishes significantly for Black and Hispanic students. So why an equity statement? To continue, why are we here? The data analysis and the information that we just looked at, for me, during our Diversity Empowerment Committee meeting, was the first time that I looked at that disaggregated data. It was the first time that that disaggregated data was made available to me. And I think that's the first time that numerous people in the district had seen that information. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And it is a compelling call to action that we are underserving portions of our student population. So the adoption of an equity statement puts the governing board's mission, vision, and commitment toward equitable outcomes in writing for clarity and accountability. To give a little history behind the development of the proposed equity statement, we had 2 study sessions as a governing board to discuss and provide feedback on the initial drafts that were proposed. We also received feedback from the Diversity Empowerment Committee facilitator, Amber Checky, who is an expert in her field in working for Anytown USA and Inclusion Counts as a consultant in the areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We also solicited feedback from the Diversity Empowerment Committee members, as well as Superintendent Gunning and other members of the administration, as well as school site equity teams. Based on all of that feedback, we put together, and it's changed some over time, we put together a proposed equity statement. And I'd like to take a look at that now. I'm not going to read the equity statement word for word, but I do want to read some of it just to give life to the words. At the Litchfield Elementary School District, we believe equitable policies, programs, and practices support our mission to connect, educate, and empower our LESD family and community and result in favorable outcomes and increased achievement for all students. We model equity by treating all people with dignity and respect, and by seeking to understand, value, and accept all members of our LESD family and community with consideration and appreciation for race, culture, gender, ability, religion, sexual orientation, and other aspects of identity. We commit to act deliberately to create and sustain a diverse community that values equity and inclusion, while building a culture that fosters understanding, acceptance, and respect for differences. We denounce discrimination, harassment, or retaliation toward any member of our LESD family. We give definition to this commitment as it relates to each of our strategic pillars by actively supporting. And the next section goes into each of our pillars and the things that we are committing to support to help us obtain a more equitable environment for each of these areas. I want to highlight a couple of these. Under student success, some of these are things we're already doing, we've been doing, we're really good at them. Some of them are not. Some of these are going to require growth, they're going to require increased understanding. One of those things under student success is just discipline. We review our discipline practices, policies, and outcomes to ensure we are treating students justly. We take steps to increase our awareness of inequity and revise practices in the best interest of our students. The other area that we're going to need to grow in order to make this statement true is representative leadership. We strive to ensure that students of all identities can find representative role models among our teachers, staff, and other adults who work and volunteer in our schools. Similarly, for people, our people are, we know, our most valuable asset, and we want to help ensure that that continues in the future. So a couple of the areas that potentially are going to be culture changes when it comes to looking at things through an equity lens are our hiring practices. We are committed to building a diverse staff at all levels and will post every position to both internal and external candidates. Staff retention. We recognize the unique strengths that each LESD family member has and the challenges they face in the workplace. We will provide support through mentoring, professional development, and opportunities to be heard. Continuing on with service, we're going to continue to provide opportunities for internal and external stakeholders and all people to be included. Under finance and resources, resource distribution. We advocate for equitable resource distribution. Equitable resource distribution does not mean equal resource distribution. We have populations that are underserved that may need something extra to get them to the same end point and outcome, and other students might need less. We need to help bridge that gap, and we can do that, some of that through resource distribution as well as resource allocation. I'll finish by reading this last kind of summary paragraph, which is really a message from our governing board. We recognize that our work toward equity is an ever-evolving process that requires empathy, an open mind and heart, and a willingness to engage in critical and sometimes uncomfortable conversations. We will continue to strive for a district and school environment where all members of our LESD family and community are not only safe, but included and celebrated. We go on to include some definitions. These are not necessarily Webster's definitions, but these are definitions in relation to these terms included in this document. One of the most important parts is this very last sentence that says this document will be updated periodically and expanded as needed. I think if we had asked ourselves what an equity statement would look like a year ago, it wouldn't have looked like this. And so I think it's important that we allow ourselves room for growth and room for change when it comes to equity. as we expand our knowledge in this area and our understanding in this area. So to continue the presentation portion, the next question is why now? If you know me very well or have had very many conversations with me, you know that I love to quote music lyrics. And so I'm going to go back to my standby with this to quote lyrics from a song called Starting Now by Totally Wet Sprocket. The best time to change was many years ago. The next best thing is starting where we are. When we know better, we do better. Now that we know better, and we have the data that has shown us that we can do better, it is imperative that we take steps to change. It is not lost on me, or any of us, governing board members, that 5 middle-aged white women discussing equity and diversity may seem a bit absurd. But we are all willing to listen, learn, and do the work to improve the outcomes for every single student in our district. So what are the next steps, potentially, that would not only follow if we adopt this equity statement this evening, but where do we go from there? The Diversity Empowerment Committee is in the process right now of setting goals, deliverables, and timeline for those goals to be hopefully accomplished. I want to give an overview of those because they go hand in hand with the support that the district is going to need to actually make these goals attainable. The first is continued learning. We want to get our staff, all staff, certified, classified admins, on the same plane when it comes to understanding of diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism. We want to take a look at our discipline and set goals for reducing the disproportionality in discipline for our Black students specifically. That's where the biggest anomaly seems to lie, or biggest disparity, I should say. Equitable achievement, similarly there, we want to look and see how we can make changes there to have those achievement outcomes more equitable across our subgroups. We'd like to take a look at diverse curriculum, take a look at what we already have, give teachers the knowledge to adapt or modify or enhance the curriculum that they have in order for it to include acceptance and cultural awareness and diverse perspectives. And then, of course, diverse staff to recruit, hire, and retain culturally competent and diverse administrators, faculty, and staff. So we'd like to see some movement in those representation numbers. From there, there would be communication of these goals and the equity statement with internal and external stakeholders. For me, I see the equity statement as the board taking a stand to support and encourage the path forward. Long term, I envision this equity work to be embedded into the strategic plan when we revise that, so that it becomes part of who we are, part of the Litchfield way. Superintendent Gunning, board members, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding the equity statement or the work that's been done to date.
I don't have any questions, but what I really liked in what you had presented to us was all of the comments that came from your committee. Really gave me great insight into one of the arguments was, is the staff really ready for this? And clearly, based on the members of that committee, I think we definitely clearly are. And they are, and that's the best thing that I see from all of that.
No questions? Okay, you were just looking at me, so I thought maybe you were just waiting for the nod to say, okay, Melissa, any questions or comments?
Oh, I did have one more. Who you calling middle-aged? I'm kidding.
I don't know, Melissa might not qualify, but.
Yeah, I think she's probably one of those.
Yeah, no, I'm not scared of being middle-aged. I'm more scared of, other things with middle age I've come to accept, unfortunately. I just want to say not a lot of questions necessarily. We have had some time over the last couple of study sessions to, discuss and collaborate. And I think, in my opinion, this is just the beginning of that collaboration. And I will admit that I am a bit naive as to what this will become. I have really high hopes, and I'm extremely optimistic, and I'm proud of the work that's been done, not just by you putting this together, but by the committee and everyone that looked at it and touched it and blessed it along the way. But this is hard work, and to the the people that said as much about it's not just the numbers that you see here in terms of our certified staff and our administrators, but it's our governing board, it's our community, it's everything that needs to change. So I go into this with eyes wide open, knowing that there's a lot that I don't know, and there's a lot that I need to know. And I think, to me, this represents my willingness to commit to supporting whatever programs or services or budget or hiring or whatever comes down the pike that Jody says we need to do this in order to live up to these expectations that you set for us. To me, what we're saying is we're committed to doing that, because Jody cannot do this by herself. This is huge. This is, not only somewhat of a culture shift internally, but I think this is also going to be somewhat of a culture shift for our student and our community, and allowing them, right, opening those doors and saying, we see what you see, and we're trying to fix it. So be patient with us, be understanding, and collaborate with us rather than just calling us out for the problems that we currently have. So I know that this is the why, and the actual how and implementation is even harder than this. And so I understand that, and I think it's really important for us to realize this is going to come in phases. Is that right? Our next step is for Jody to work her magic internally with her administrators and staff and all of the departments and say, how are we going to break this down department by department? How are we going to go in and introduce this, some of these concepts to our staff and things like that? So I look forward to seeing that process and what that's going to take. But I would challenge the board members, the 5 white middle-aged women up here, as Kim so eloquently said, to take it upon yourself to be ready to support the initiatives that are coming down, whether that be with our own expertise or knowledge, recruiting and educating people about what board members do so that we can get other people in our community sitting up here with us, and other people that might have a more diverse and cultural awareness that we do, and being supportive of changes in budget and allocation and how we treat certain things, because it's going to be different for all of us, and it's not something we've seen before. So I think this opens the door for a lot of good change, but it's also going to be some difficult change. And I think we need to understand and just appreciate that as we walk into this.
I think it's also important to recognize that this started with an idea that Kim had, and this is what follow through looks like. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
So, thank you, Kim.
I would like to also offer a word of gratitude to everyone who provided feedback during this process. Not only the Diversity Empowerment Committee members, but Superintendent Gunning and fellow board members. Megan Duplain has been instrumental in this work, as well as John Scudder, and all of the site teams, the equity site teams that are at the schools and already, boots to the ground with this important work, for them to take the time to read this, and whether it was fully supportive or partly supportive or skeptical about it, but just to provide the feedback is invaluable. And when we as a board say we want to hear what you have to say and we want your input, we really do mean it. And I hope that this has been a good experience so far, and we want to continue hearing your feedback, because this is going to be a rough process, and there are people who are going to love it and there are people who are going to hate it. And I hope that we're prepared. I think we are prepared to get where we need to go and have those uncomfortable moments and conversations. It has been very eye-opening being part of the Diversity Empowerment Committee, because people have shared their own experiences and their own stories, and so many people have gone through really traumatizing and disparaging things when it comes to
race specifically. And I just think we can all learn from those things. So the more we can listen to others and just hear them out, just hear their story, hopefully it'll add to our own understanding.
When we had our study session, I had some concerns, like I was just concerned about what we're doing to our staff, and seeing the feedback that we got was really helpful for me. I am not one that's like, we have to do things because it's the way it's always been done. In fact, people that say that all the time make me really angry because you need to be willing to make change, and I totally think that's necessary. But I do appreciate that we got the feedback, because that was really important to me to see that people were going to embrace this, because this will only be successful if our district fully embraces whatever it is that we're doing and stands behind it 100%. And so we need everybody's buy-in, we need everybody to want to do this, and so it was good to get that information. But I do think it's important that we talk about that this isn't like, because we do this now doesn't mean suddenly tomorrow everything's going to be better, and that this is a process that's going to take time to work through. So I'm hoping that people are understanding that change takes time, and so don't think that we're just sitting on this like we're doing this and that's all we're going to do, but we are going to go through the process, and we're going to get there over time, but to work with us and watch as the process unfolds.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for the feedback and the comments. There was a lot of work that went into this, and there will be more work to come. Absolutely. If there's nothing else further, then I will entertain a motion. Kim, I would love it if you would do us the honors of supporting your own initiative here.
I will move to approve the governing board equity statement as presented.
I second. Tanya's the last official second of her governing board career. This is very moving. Any final comments or questions from the board? Okay, with that, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Kim, and to all the people that worked really hard to make this happen. Thank you very much. And I know this isn't on our agenda, but I just have to say, we are just going to miss you so much, Tanya. We really are. It's hard. It's hard. I look down all the time, and you've just been there from the beginning. So, you know, Jeremy, if you're watching, we will welcome you with open arms beginning in January. But for now, let us just reminisce with Tanya for a few more minutes. Thank you so much for all your hard work and dedication. You will be sorely missed. And with that, I will. Oh, we're not going to take this away from Melissa. I will open the floor for a motion. Melissa's giving it over. Thanks. Wow, you are really special if Melissa's giving that to you.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
A second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.